Alright, well, welcome to tutoring for Algebra 2 Test 2. What we're going to do is we're going to go through some problems that match up exactly like what's on the test that you're here to retake. So we want to make sure that you know how to do the material here before you retake the test. So you'll notice on the review sheet there's 3 columns. The video here is me describing the problem that's on the left side, and then I'll have you pause the video, you try the problem that's in the middle, and then try the problem that's on the right. To the greatest extent possible, you really want to try to do as much of this as you can on your own. If you're just copying down what I'm writing, you're not going to get as much out of it. So I really do encourage you to try to do as much of this as you can on your own, and then use the video to kind of check back, to check your answers and that sort of thing. And of course, if at any point you get stuck, you need more clarification, or you've got a question, then you can certainly ask for help as well. Alright, well, let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at the first question. What this first question is looking at is interpreting what we call a distance time graph. And basically what that's referring to is that there's some story here, and what it's saying is that as someone moves away from where they started, as time passes, how far have they traveled? And what we also have to take a look at is how slowly or how fast they're moving. Now, you may want to take a moment and maybe pause the video here to write down what you see at the top, but I'll just kind of explain this real quickly. So there's really 7 different shapes that we might use here in describing a particular story. Maybe the story describes someone moving away at a steady or a constant rate. Well, if someone's moving at a constant rate, that's why that line would be straight. Why is it that they're moving away? Well, just like you read words from left to right, we read math, we read graphs from left to right as well. So if I look at it from left to right, this is moving away from where I started. Don't think of that in terms of height, because we're not measuring height. If you look down here, we're not saying about the height of anything, so don't think of that as that it's going up, even though the line is going up, but don't think of it as vertical height. Think of it as distance away from where you started. This curve right here represents starting fast and then kind of going a little bit slower. How you know that is that if you're going really fast, then that line would almost be vertical. And then if you slow down, the line begins to flatten out. The other way around is if the line starts flat and then it kind of goes straight up vertical, then that means that you started slow and you went fast. The other way is that if you're coming back home or back toward wherever you started, right? So from left to right, you see we're getting closer back down to this direction. So this would be steady, right? It's a straight line because you're going at a constant rate. As far as slow, it's kind of flatten out, and then it almost becomes vertical there. So again, vertical means that we're going fast. Flat means that flatter, I should say, means we're going slower. And again, fast to slow. And then the horizontal line here means that you're not moving at all. The reason why that would be horizontal is because your distance away from where you started isn't changing. You're not going away, you're not coming back, it's just staying the same. Alright, so let's take a look at the story here. It says Sarah was abducted by aliens. Hey, it happens. Use the shapes below to model her trip and label each section. So what it says for the first 20 minutes, so let's see, 20 minutes, beam of light pulled her at a steady pace. Okay, steady, that's important. And it says she went 2 miles. Alright, so what I would do is that, and before I actually start drawing the line, maybe I kind of just mark out the points. So it says that it was for 20 minutes, and she traveled 2 miles. So if she's starting here, in this first section, she ends up there. So you notice I didn't draw a line yet. I'll put a point, and then I'll kind of connect those 2 points. Well, it says she went at a steady pace, so steady means that it's going to be a straight line. And this would be A, the first section there. Alright, so let's look at B. Now what it says is that she went she went for the next 10 minutes. Let's take a look here. So for the next 10 minutes, she didn't move. Poor Sarah was getting her brain taken out. So she's on the operating table. we're assuming that the UFO or the alien spacecraft is staying in a stationary or staying in the same position. So she's not any closer to home, but she's not any further away from home. So her distance from home is staying unchanged. They operated on her for 10 minutes, so from 20 to 30. Oop, too far. 20 to 30. Let me fix that. And she, again, as we said, her distance did not change. So that section right there would just be a horizontal line. And then let's look at the last part. So they took her back home or dropped her off. And so it says it took them 15 minutes. And the beam started slowly, but then it sped up. And then she went 2 miles. So what we're saying is that it took them 15 minutes to drop her back off. So at this point, she'd been away from home for 30 minutes. 15 more minutes from that would put you at 45. And then let's get the shape of this. It says slowly, and then it sped up. Well, if we're on our way back, and we're going slow, that means it's kind of flat at first, and then whew, they dropped her off real fast. So, maybe we'll kind of start with a curve, and then we'll kind of drop down real fast there. And so that would be section C. All right, so there's 7 shapes here, but on each problem, maybe you use, in this one we only use 3 of the 7. Maybe some you use more than more than once, or maybe you don't use it all. So you just have to kind of mix and match depending upon the situation. But all of these problems will involve going away from some point and then returning back to where you started. So the story may change, but all of these will have kind of a similar story about going away and then coming back. All right, so pause now and try 1.2 in the middle and then 1.3 on the right. All right, so let's check in with you on 1.2. And again, you should have already done this on your own. So you're just checking to see your answer, if you got the right answer or not. So let's look at 1.2. So there was no resting here. Anthony went to Starbucks, forgot his wallet, and he turned right back at home. So that's why the green section, what I'm representing is the no change in distance. You don't see that there. It says that he started off. What did it say he did? He rode fast. Right? So he rode fast and then slowed down. So that's why the first part of this is vertical, and then it begins to flatten out because he starts to slow down. The next part is at a steady pace, and then it says he went back home at a steady pace as well. The only thing to mention here is, and what you may have got confused, is it says a fast steady pace, and then you're like, well, what's the difference between a fast steady or a slow steady or a steady, right? Well, it's going to be a straight line. If it's steady, that means that it's constant. So it's going to be a straight line. It just means how steep that line is. You notice that it took him 30 minutes to get to Starbucks, and it took him only 20 minutes to get back home. So he went a lot faster on his way home. So what you notice, and it may be kind of hard to tell, but this line, the line for C, this is steeper because he was going faster. This line for B, so it's not quite as steep. And so that just refers to the slope. And so the rate of change wasn't quite as much for B as it was for C. And that's actually the whole theme of this unit, is talking about slope and rate of change, and so we'll get into that. All right, so let's look at 1.3. So you should have something that looked like that. It says that he was warming up, so that's why it starts off kind of slow, and then he picks it up, so that's why it becomes more steep. Takes a rest, so that's why it's flat. And then it says that he starts off fast, so it's steeper, but then he gets tired, so then it begins to flatten out because he's not going as fast. So you should have something that looks like that. All right, so make sure that's what you've got. If it's not, ask a question, try to figure it out on your own, and then that concludes the first question.